Welcome back to Sell Your Business for Millions. I'm your host, Eric Gilbord. If you're sitting in your car right now, or maybe you're pacing in your office, and you're looking at your profit and loss statements thinking, this is it. This is the year I ring the bell. Then you need to stop everything you're doing for the next 15 minutes. We aren't talking about the M&A market of 2022. We aren't even talking about the market of 2024. It is 2026, and the landscape of selling a business has been completely terraformed by artificial intelligence. You've spent years, maybe decades, building this business. You've bled for it, but the person or the algorithm on the other side of the table doesn't care about your blood, sweat, and tears anymore. They care about your data architecture. They care about your prompt engineering. They care about how much of your margin is human dependent versus agent automated. If you go into a negotiation today using the playbook from 5 years ago, you're going to get slaughtered. You're going to be left holding a bag of legacy debt while the AI native companies are exiting at multiples we haven't seen since the dot-com boom. Today, I'm giving you the 7 pillars of the AI exit. These are the 7 things that first-time sellers absolutely must grasp if they want to hit the $1 million mark and beyond. Let's start with your AI readiness. That's the new EBITDA. Let's talk about the first and most vital pillar, AI readiness. In the old days, and yes, 2023 is now considered the old days, a buyer would walk in, hire a Big Four accounting firm, and spend 6 weeks digging through your EBITDA. They wanted to see earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. They wanted a clean trailing 12 months. But in 2026, EBITDA is just the baseline. It's the entry fee. The real metric that is driving 80% of the valuation conversation right now is your AI to human leverage ratio. I know it sounds like a mouthful, but stay with me. Think about it from the buyer's perspective. If I buy your business for $10 million and that business requires a staff of 50 people to maintain $2 million in profit, I'm buying a massive management headache. I am buying payroll taxes, HR liabilities, office space requirements, and the human friction of 2026. However, if I look at your competitor and they have the same $2 million in profit, but they're doing it with a staff of 5 people and a fleet of 20 autonomous AI agents handling logistics, customer success, and outbound sales, that business is worth, I don't know, 3 times what yours is. Why? Because the scalability ceiling has been removed. As a first time seller, you need to be able to present an AI integration map as part of your marketing materials. You need to show the buyer exactly where you have replaced manual labor hours with compute cycles. If you can show a buyer that you have automated your top of funnel lead generation using a multi-agent workflow, you aren't just selling a business, you're selling a high margin machine. You are moving your company from a service multiple, usually 3 to 5x, to a software multiple, which can be 8, 10, or higher. I've seen founders in the last 6 months try to hide their lack of AI. They think, oh, I'll just tell them we have a great culture. Let me tell you, in 2026, culture is what you talk about at the holiday party. Efficiency is what you talk about at the closing table. If your business is still running on manual spreadsheets and tribal knowledge stored in your employees' heads, a sophisticated buyer is going to see that as a liability. They see it as legacy tax they'll have to pay to upgrade your systems after the acquisition. You need to audit your workflows right away. Every single department, marketing, sales, operations, finance, needs to have a documented AI component. You should be able to say our customers' acquisition costs dropped by 40% because we moved from human cold callers to personalized AI video agents. That sentence alone is worth an extra point on your multiple. Remember, the buyer isn't just buying your past performance, they're buying the future cash flows. And in 2026, the only way to guarantee those cash flows in a competitive deflationary market is through AI-driven efficiency. If you don't have an AI story, you don't have a growth story. And if you don't have a growth story, you don't have $1 million eggs. Two, the death of the data room, the AI-driven due diligence revolution. We have to talk about the black box of selling a business, due diligence. If you've talked to anyone who sold a company in 2019 or 2022, they'll tell you it was a nightmare of data rooms, digital folders filled with thousands of PDFs, Excel files, and scanned contracts that looked like they were photographed with a toaster. In the old world, the buyer would send in a team of associates, usually 20 something year olds with high-end degrees and low-end sleep schedules to manually read every single line of your customer contracts. They were looking for change of control clauses. They were looking for hidden liabilities. It took 3 months. It was a war of attrition. But here in 2026, those associates have been replaced. When you open your data room to a private equity firm or a strategic buyer today, they aren't sending people, they're sending autonomous diligence agents. Yep, that's it. The world of AI is basically taken over due diligence. You know, the all seeing auditor. Imagine a specialized LLM, let's call it Diligence GPT for argument's sake, that has been trained on every single M&A deal in your industry for the last decade. The moment you hit upload on your folders, this agent ingests every byte of data. It doesn't read your contracts, it maps them. Within 4 minutes, the buyer knows exactly where your weaknesses are. They know if your top 3 customers have contracts that expire in 6 months. They know if your intellectual property filings have a tiny clerical error that could invalidate a patent. As a first time seller, and basically, 95% of small and medium sized businesses owners are first time sellers. This is terrifying if you aren't prepared. You can no longer bury a bad month in a complicated spreadsheet. The AI will see the anomaly in your churn rate instantly. It will correlate your marketing spend against your customer lifetime value across 5 years and tell the buyer, hey, this founder spiked their ad spend 3 months ago just to make the growth look better for the sale. Your counter strategy, i.e., the pre diligence audit. Because the buyer is using AI to find your flaws, you must first use AI to find them yourself. This is the counterintelligence phase of the exit. Before you ever talk to a broker, you need to run your own agentic audit. You took your entire Google Drive, your entire Slack history, and your entire QuickBooks file, and you feed it into a private, secure instance of a high reasoning model. You ask it, act as a cynical, progressive, or aggressive private equity firm. Find every reason not to buy this company. Find every reason to hammer me on the valuation. Where are my skeletons? I know it seems really severe, but you need to ask yourself these questions before the guy who's or girl who's considering buying your company. The AI will tell you, it will say your reliance on a single supplier in Southeast Asia is a 20% risk factor, or your employment contracts in the UK don't have non compete clauses that are enforceable under 2026 law. This gives you the lead time to fix the problems before the buyer ever sees them. In 2026, the win goes to the seller who arrives at the table with an AI verified data room. You don't just give them files, you give them an answer engine for your business. You tell the buyer, don't just look at my spreadsheets. Here's a custom trained agent that knows my unit economics better than I do. Ask it anything. This is transparency. This transparency builds an incredible amount of trust. And in M&A, trust is the currency that buys you a higher multiple. 3, AEO versus SEO. If the AI can't find you, you don't exist. Now let's move to the discovery phase. This is arguably the biggest shift for first-time sellers in the mid-market. In the past, if you wanted to sell your business, you went to a broker. They put you on a listing site like BizBuySell or Axial, and you hope the buyer's Google search for profitable plumbing businesses in Florida will land on your page. This was SEO, search engine optimization. In 2026, SEO is dead for business exits. We are now in the era of AEO, answer engine optimization. How buyers search in 2026. This is super key. Large scale acquirers aren't browsing websites anymore, they're using scout agents. A strategic buyer, say a massive tech conglomerate, will tell their AI continuously crawl the global market for any company with 5 to 10 million in revenue that uses a recurring revenue model, has a high density of patents and edge computing, and whose founder is likely looking to retire based on their public social data and age. These scout agents aren't looking for keywords, they're looking for semantics and signals. They're reading your LinkedIn post from 3 years ago. They're looking at your company's Glassdoor reviews to see if the sentiment is shifting. They're analyzing your GitHub repositories to see the quality of your code. The ghost listing. If your business doesn't have a digital signature that AI can understand, you are invisible. This is the ghost listing trap. You might have the most profitable business in the world, but if the LLMs that power the buyer's search tools haven't indexed your value, you will never get the knock on the door offer. To optimize the AEO as a seller, you have to be intentional about your company's structured data. You need to ensure that your about pages, your white papers, and your press releases are written not just for humans, but for the vector databases that AI uses to categorize companies. Crafting your AI ready narrative. Think of it this way: when an AI agent asks, who is the leader in the niche market of cellular infrastructure maintenance? Your company's name needs to be the first node that pops up in that agent's brain. How do you do that? Well, structured metadata. Use schema markup on your website that explicitly defines your industry, your revenue brackets, the public, and your core technologies. Secondly, semantic density. Stop using vague buzzwords like innovative or synergy. Use the specific technical terms that an AI agent would use to categorize a high value target. The sentiment scan. AI agents are great at emotional analysis. They will scan your founder interviews or your podcast appearances, like this one, to see if you sound ready to sell or burnt out. If you sound desperate, the AI driven offer will reflect that. You need to use your public presence to project strength, stability, and scalability. In 2026, the most valuable businesses aren't found, they are inferred by AI. You want to be the logical conclusion to a buyer's search query. You want the AI to tell the buyer there is only one company that fits your criteria perfectly, and if you don't move now, your competitor's AI agent will find them by Tuesday. That is how you create a bidding war without ever picking up the phone. The multi agent multiplier. Moving into our fourth pillar, we have to address the labor versus compute debate. For decades, the value of a business was tied to its people. When you sold a company, the buyer would ask, who are the top 10 people I need to retain to make sure this thing doesn't fall apart? In 2026, that question has evolved. Now they ask, what is the compute cost to revenue ratio? Which is probably a phrase you've never heard. The replacement of the middle layer. We are seeing a massive hollowing out of the middle management layer in companies that are successfully exiting for millions. Why? Because agentic workflows are now handling the middle layer of operations. If you are a first time seller, you need to understand that a buyer in 2026 is actually scared to death of a large headcount. In the 20th century, a big staff meant you were a big shot. In 2026, a big staff means you have a low efficiency liability. A buyer looks at 100 employees and sees 100 health insurance plans, 100 potential HR lawsuits, and 100 points of human error. But if you show them a synthetic workforce, a network of AI agents that manage your logistics, your payroll, your basic customer inquiries, and even your first round sales outreach, you are showing them a business with infinite elasticity, that is, scaling without friction. This is the multiplier secret. If your revenue doubles, does your headcount have to double? If the answer is yes, your multiple is, I don't know, maybe 4 times. If the answer is no, I just increased my API spend by 500 a month, Your multiple could be, I don't know, 10, 12x. As you prepare your exit, you need to document your agentic architecture. Treat your AI agents like digital employees. Give them titles, give them performance reviews in your documentation. Show the buyer that your chief logistics agent hasn't made a routing error in 18 months. When you prove that your business can scale revenue without scaling human friction, you have moved from selling a small business to selling a scalable system, and systems sell. Pillar 5, the K-shaped valuation, the great AI divide. We have to address the elephant in the room, the valuation gap. In the world of 2026, we no longer have a rising tide that lifts all boats. We have a K-shaped exit market. On the top arm of the K, you have the AI integrated companies, the ones that have spent the last 24 months rebuilding their foundations on top of agentic frameworks. These companies are exiting at multiples that look like 2021 tech bubbles, 12x, 15x, even 20x EBITDA. On the bottom arm of the K, you have a legacy businesses. These are the companies that said AI is a fad. Well, also the same people who thought websites were a fad. Many customers prefer the human touch, or I'll wait until the tech matures. In 2026, waiting was the most expensive mistake a founder could make. These legacy businesses are seeing their multiples compressed to 2 or 3x. Why? Because a buyer looks at a legacy business and sees a renovation project. They don't see a turnkey asset, they see a dinosaur that they have to pay to kill so they can plant something new in its place. The deflationary multiple. As a first time seller, you must realize that AI is deflationary. It makes everything cheaper to produce. If your competitor is using AI to cut their operational costs by 70%, and you're still paying full price for human labor, your margins are being eaten from the outside in. A buyer in 2026 isn't just looking at your current P&L, they're running a sensitivity analysis through an AI model. They're asking the model, if a competitor launches an AI native version of this business tomorrow, how long until this founder's revenue hits zero? If the answer is 18 months, your business is effectively worthless in an exit. You have to prove that your moat isn't just good service, it's proprietary data. In 2026, the only thing that protects your valuation from the AI squeeze is the data you own that the AI models haven't trained on yet. Do you have 10 years of specific niche cellular infrastructure data? Do you have proprietary sensor logs from 5,000 towers? That is your exit gold. That is what keeps you on top of the K. Okay. Take a breath. Pillar 6, the death of AI, the legal clause, the new due diligence nightmare. Now let's get into the dark side of the exit, liability. In 2026, we're seeing the first wave of AI malpractice lawsuits. As a seller, you might think your AI chatbot is just a helpful tool, but to a buyer's legal team, it's a liability time bomb, or at least could be. Here's the black box problem. When you go to sell, the buyer's lawyers are going to ask for your AI governance log. They want to know every model you used, every data set you trained on, and every guardrail you had in place. If your customer support AI gave a customer bad advice that led to a financial loss and you don't have indemnity from the model provider, you're responsible. And that liability doesn't disappear when you sell the company. The buyer will try to claw back your exit money to pay for the losses. The data provenance audit. Buyers are now terrified of copyright contamination. If you use an AI tool to generate your marketing copy, your code, or your product designs, and that tool was trained on unlicensed data, the buyer might not actually own the assets they're buying from you. In 2026, a clean chain of title includes a clean AI history. You need to have a legal shield ready. You need to show that you used enterprise grade AI with built in legal protections. If you've been using free versions of LLMs to run your business, you might find a holdback clause in your contract where the buyer keeps 20% of your sale price in an escrow account for 3 years just in case an AI lawsuit pops up. To get your full millions, you need to prove your AI is clean, compliant, and contained. Okay, Pillar 7, the emotional exit. AI is your ghost negotiator. Finally, we have to talk about the psychology of the sale. Selling a business is the most stressful thing a human being can do. It's right up there with death and divorce. As a first time seller, you're at a massive disadvantage. The buyer, whether it's private equity or a strategic or a serial entrepreneur, does this for a living. They are professional sharks. You are a first time swimmer. The emotionless advisor. This is where AI becomes your greatest ally. In 2026, the smartest sellers aren't just hiring expensive brokers, they're using negotiation agents. When a buyer sends you a lowball offer or a predatory letter of intent, your instinct is to get angry. Your instinct is to take it personally, but an AI doesn't have an ego. You can feed that LOI into a high reasoning model and say, analyze this for hidden friction. Where is the buyer trying to screw me in the earnout phase? Write a counteroffer that is firm, professional, and backed by the last 6 months of M&A data in the cellular sector, assuming you're in the cellular sector. Leveling the playing field. AI gives the little guy the same analytical power as a Goldman Sachs analyst. It can scan the buyer's past acquisitions and tell you this buyer typically tries to reduce their price by 15% during the final week of diligence. Stand your ground by using AI as your strategic buffer. You remove the emotional tax of the sale. You stay focused on the millions, not the drama. You use the AI to simulate different exit scenarios. What happens if I take 80% cash now versus 50% cash and a 50% earnout? The AI can run 10,000 simulations of your industry's future and tell you which deal has the highest probability of success. Sounds pretty good, and now AI is working in your favor, not just against you. So, in concluding, the $1 million handshake. As we wrap up this episode of Sell Your Business for Millions, I want you to look at your business one last time. Is it a 20th century human heavy business, or is it a 2026 AI augmented asset? The difference isn't just a few dollars, it's the difference between a comfortable retirement and generating. The exit of your dreams is waiting for you, but you have to speak the language of the future. You have to be AI native, AI readable, and AI protected. I'm Eric Gilbord. This has been Sell Your Business for Millions. And we'll see you on the next episode. And don't forget, if you know first time business sellers, they could be family, they could be friends, they could be business associates, it could be clients or prospects. Have them take a look at Sell Your Business for Millions and listen to our bite-sized episodes to help them get to a point where they quickly understand what the heck is going on with selling their business.
That's the sound of a big deal. At Wayfair, that sound happens a lot. Dream sofa for half the price? Big deal. New dining table you've been eyeing for months? Big deal. Finally picking up those last few pieces and finishing that bedroom? Now that's a really big deal. Whatever your home needs, Wayfair has the selection, the savings, and over millions of 5-star reviews to back it up. Shop wayfair.com today before someone else snags your big deal.
Wayfair, every style, every home.